one of the things that I'm passionate about, besides cooking great meals, is this concept called the mystical experience. And for years, I've been working on bridging the science with the mysticism, the science with the spiritual aspect, and combining different principles so that, number one, people can have an experience that we can reproduce it, to create a roadmap where people know where they're going, and then give some basic understandings that we have the biological machinery in place that just has to be activated so a person can actually begin to understand the mystery of the self. Because one of the biggest lies we've been ever told is that we're linear beings living a linear life. We're not. We're dimensional beings living a dimensional life, and we just happen to be keeping all of our awareness on our bodies, all of our attention and awareness on everything in our environment, and all of our attention on linear time. And when you do that, you have to play by the laws of Newtonian physics in space and time. Nothing wrong with that. It's just that there's more to reality. In fact, science says that we perceive less than 1% of reality. So we're missing out on a lot. So to go back to the story, I was writing an article on the pineal gland. And the pineal gland has, as I say in the book, metabolites of melatonin. Melatonin is the nighttime neurotransmitter that's made from serotonin in the pineal gland. And melatonin is what puts us to sleep at night. It what causes us to dream, causes us to repair, causes us to heal, helps us to metabolize. It causes us to relax. But when melatonin gets an upgrade, because a person begins to experience a greater frequency, it turns into some very powerful metabolites. So I was writing an article about it, and I was just in my innocent state, sitting on the couch, and my kids were asleep. I had finished the day. I was thinking about all the things that I had to do tomorrow, and I kind of made a list in my mind, and I just needed a minute to relax. And I just kind of laid back on the couch. I had a fire going, and it was quiet. I kind of gazing into the fire, and I was getting kind of moving into a trance. And I just said to myself, talking to the pineal gland, where are you anyway? And with my mind, I kind of searched in my brain to try to figure out where I was. I could find it with becoming aware of it. And it was like I locked into something. The moment I locked into where the pineal gland was, in 1 second, I saw an image of this knob with its mouth open, releasing this white milky substance. And then in a flash, I saw a timepiece, like a pocket watch, but big and very, very, very lucid. And I saw the hands started moving backwards in time. And the moment I had this lucid experience, when I saw the timepiece, I understood that the pineal gland acts as like a timepiece that causes us to slip into different times and spaces. I don't know how else to say it except that I knew it. Yeah. And then the timepiece went backwards, and it went to a time when I was a 7-year-old kid. I was living on the East Coast with, our family was living there, and I was having a fever. And the moment I saw the scene, I remembered it, what was happening. And I had a fever, and my mother had just left the room, and I put the covers right up to my nose like this, right under my eyes. And I would do it every time I had a fever because I loved fevers. When I got fevers, I would always have very weird, mystical dreams. And somehow I would just go into this altered state. So yeah. I'm witnessing this 7-year-old kid kind of unfolding into this mystical realm. And I'm asking in a very intuitive way a question about the way reality is. And I have no idea as a 7-year-old how I knew to ask that question. But when I saw myself as a 7-year-old asking that question, I fell in love with that kid. Like, wow. And then I was seeing how I was looking at reality as like checkerboard squares, each having a different dimension or a different, expression. But It's more like looking in the two mirrors that are side by side in a bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
It's infinite. It was kind of like I was unraveling that idea of dimensions as a 7-year-old kid during a fever. And I just thought, wow, I'm
Wow.
impressed. I didn't remember consciously doing that until I witnessed the scene. And when I fell in love with this little guy, I realized that the future me, called Joe Dispenza, living in the Pacific Northwest, was falling in love with the kid, and it was the future me that was drawing him to me. And that I was asking the same questions as an adult that I was asking then, and it was all happening in the present moment. There was no separation between my past and that moment. I recognized that all reality was happening in the same moment. I don't know how else to say that reality is kind of stacked on top of each other. The reason we see it as past and future is because we're conditioned into very linear time. But in the quantum field, there is no separation of time. So everything's happening in the present moment. So I was asking that same question as an adult, and I witnessed that I was doing the same thing as I was when I was young, and it was happening. There was a simultaneity that took place that I just understood. And then the timepiece moved forward. I saw the timepiece again move forward. And then there I am walking through my backyard as a future self of me, but an upgraded version of me, like more enlightened, more loving, more energy, more clear, more alive. And it was a winter night in the Pacific Northwest. I was barefoot and I was walking on the grass. You know, the Pacific Northwest, when the grass gets cold and it's white.
Yeah.
I was walking across the grass barefoot with a kind of a cape on, but I was so in love with the cold that I wasn't afraid of it. I wasn't contracting from it. It all felt good. I don't know how else to say it. That it was life, and I was engaged, and I wasn't cold. It was just an experience. And I had walked across these basalt stones, and I was just so passionate and so filled with life. And I was walking past the fountain, and all of a sudden, this very tiny little beautiful woman dressed in white comes out from behind the fountain, and I look at her, and she looks at me, and all of a sudden she sends me this amazing amount of love right in my heart. And I was thinking in the moment before that I was so filled with love, and the next moment she looks at me and elevates love, more love within me, and I remember thinking, my God, there's more love to feel than this.
Wow.
And in one instant, I remembered why I was there. And I looked towards the window, and then there's me, who was washing dishes a few minutes before, sitting on the couch. And I could see him in the window, and I was in the backyard.
Wow.
And I was my future self, and I'm washing dishes. And all of a sudden, I look at that guy, and I fall in love with him because I see his challenges. I see how he loves to dovetail concepts. I see his sincerity, and I see certain things about his future. Because I'm him. I'm God. And I fall in love with him. And the moment I fall in love with him, as I'm washing dishes an hour before I sit on the couch, I remember having this funny feeling that someone's in the backyard. And I see myself in the window lean forward to look through the glass because there was a light behind me that was causing a reflection in the glass, and I couldn't see the outside. So I kind of leaned forward to see if there was someone outside because I had this feeling someone was out there.
Wow.
It was just because my upgraded version of me was loving me, and I felt some feeling of love, and I was wondering where it came from. And I thought maybe someone was outside. So I had this moment where the pineal gland, the experience of the pineal gland showed me that we can move through times and spaces, and we can experience relevant moments that are connected to our present moment. And so that started me on the journey of dissecting and understanding how physics of quantum and dimensions begins to work with our biology in the pineal gland, and what is the system that takes that experience and makes it into vivid imagery. And